Welcome to the lecture series of Embedded Controller. We are seeing the concepts of PIC microcontroller and its programming. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about how to configure the different ports. As we are already discussing in case of pin diagram of PIC 18F4420, we are having 5 ports totally. So starting from port A to port E. So out of 40 pins, there are 23 input and output pins. So here we are going to see how to configure these ports. So as we know that, so there are two registers. One is called TRIS register and another one is called port register. So TRIS is nothing but, so each registers, as I have already told you, starting from port A to port E, there are totally 5 registers are there. So those 5 registers individually having each TRIS registers. So the purpose of TRIS register is to assign whether the particular IBARO pin can be used as input or output. So each port is having their individual TRIS register. The TRIS register is assigned as a direction register and port register is called as a data register. So the direction register indicates which port is to be used as an input as well as output, and the data has to be sent via the port registers. So this is how the register configuration of different ports will be done. So for example, we are going to take port B, and a configuration register of port B is the corresponding direction register is TRIS B. So this TRIS B is having a 8-bit data. So for example, that different bits can be assigned as RB0 and RB1 to RB8, RB7. So totally there are 8 bits are there. So depending upon the values present in each of these bits. So if this value is 1 or if this value is 0. So depending upon the value present in each bits, each of these bits, that particular port or the particular pin can be used as an input or output. So for example, if you see if RBX bit is 0, then that bit will be set as output. That is, if all the bits are set as 0 and all the 8 bits are assigned as an output pin. And similarly, if that particular RBX bit is 1, then the pin will be set as input pin. So if all the pins are configured as 1, then all the bits are considered as an input. So for example, this is the series we have to give. So interest B equal to, if I am assigning 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 to all the bit, so that's corresponding hex value, hexadecimal value is 00H. So that is all pins are acting as an output. For TRIS B, if I am assigning as 1 on all bits, so it is hexadecimal value is FFH and all pins are considered as input. So if any one particular bits or other bits, so instead of all the 8 pin as input or output, I am mentioning that only 3 pins has been input or other 5 pins has been output. So if that is the case, then you have to configure like this. For example, if 1010101, that corresponding hex number may be 55H, that is RB7 and RB5 and RB3 and RB and RB1 that are indicated as 0, so these pins are naming as an output pins. Similarly, RB6 this pin and RB4 this pin and RB2 and RB0 are configured as bit 1. So that particular bits, that particular pins are acting as an input. So these hexadecimal values have to be fed in for your TRIS register. So there are two important registers. One is TRIS and another one is port. So TRIS register is called as a direction register and port register is called as a data register. So depending upon the value that is to be given, instead of 0 or 1, that particular registers are assigned as an output or input. This is how this is called as GPIO, that is general purpose input bar output. So that the same pin can be used as an input as well as output. So the next concept is data type and time delay in C. So as you know that there are different data types are available. So for example, unsigned char, unsigned int, unsigned short, unsigned short, the short long, unsigned long. So each char data type carries different size of bits. So the char is having 8 bits and int is having 16 bits and short and long is having 16 bit, 24 bit, 32 bit accordingly. So why this data type is needed? So we are having only a particular or small memory place in PIC microcontroller or in any other microcontroller. The memory is along with the processor that is embedded into a single chip. So the available memory space in a controller is very less. So the usage of an memory space in the controller is, if it should be an effective way, then only the spacing will be utilized for many applications. Otherwise, if I am assigning a integer for an 8-bit data, so unnecessarily I am wasting the different locations. So that is the reason. So the data type will be assigned properly. For example, if my data is between 0 to 255, that is, it is an 8-bit value. So then I can name it as unsigned char. Or if it is my negative or positive value, so we can go with character alone. So if it is an 2-bit, that is 16-bit, 2-byte data. So that is 16-bit. So I can go with an integer. So this 8-bit and 16-bit are most of the cases we are using this. So you should be very familiar on these concepts. So if for an 8-bit data, if I am assigning as unsigned int, then unnecessarily I am going to allocate the location of 0 to 65,000 for a memory. So, but it requires only 255 locations. So instead, I am locating 65,000 extra. So that is wasting of space in a microcontroller. So likewise, according to the data what we are using, we have to choose the data type very effectively. So the PIC8-bit microcontroller character data type is the most natural choice for many applications. So unsigned char is an 8-bit data is of 0 to FF, that is 0 to 255. So it is unsigned char and instead of int it is possible. So for example, let us see an example to send a value of 00 to FF to port B. So the signed char, so for 8-bit data, if I am assigning as unsigned char, then the values between 0 to 255. If the signed char is assigned, then the values between -128 to plus 127. So it is representing both positive as well as negative values. So this is the example what I am saying previously. So C18 program to send the values of -4 to +4 to port B. So I am just representing the PIC, and inside the main I am defining my numbers as char. So why it is char? So my numbers are between -2 to plus. If the positive values alone, I have to name it as unsigned char. If my values to the port B is -4 to +4. So I am declaring the data type as character. So it will allow both positive values as well as negative values. Sorry. So next I have to go with the loop condition. So my loop value maximum value is 8. So it is an 8-bit data. So I can use char and it is a positive value. So I am declaring as an unsigned char. So this is the simple program where we can display the values from -4 to +4 in port B. So similarly, we can choose effective data type for a data what we are declaring in our program. So it will save the memory as well as the effective application can be run in case of PIC microcontroller.